Hi guys, this is John Anderson with Ragdoll Studios with another tutorial for you today. This tutorial is being created at the request of some of our followers, RizkyDP and Jesse Thorpe. We'll be creating the base tree that can be used in conjunction with the particle leaves tutorial we created some time ago. We'll also take a look at creating another type of foliage in ZBrush using Fibermesh. We'll be using the free plugin for ZBrush to help in the tree creation. The plugin created by Dargelos Nuzumi is called ZTree, and you can find it on ZBrush Central. We'll post a link in the comments so you can have easy access to the plugin. To install the plugin, navigate to your ZBrush folder and then to your ZStartup folder and place the zip file in your ZPlugs folder. You can unzip it there. Make sure that you have a ZTree data folder and a ZTree file. Okay? And with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So typically when I use ZTree, what I'll do is I will open up ZBrush like so, and I will go up to ZPlugins, and we should already have the ZTree plugin available to us if you installed it correctly. If you didn't, go ahead and message me and I will try to help you out. So go ahead and select ZTree. And then we have a couple different options down here for trees. We have the your evergreen conifer type tree, and then we have our standard, I believe it's called a deciduous tree. So you could you could create these automatically just by clicking one of these two buttons here. But we're going to go ahead and create a tree that's a little more customized for our purposes. So what I typically will do is I'll just come down to where it says start and I will click start, and that will create a base for us. Now the only reason I do this is because I want to see the up direction for our tree, because there are coordinate systems for ZBrush but they're hard to really access. So this gives us a base Z-sphere for our up direction. So what I'll do is I will grab the undo scrubber and I'll just scrub backward until we're left with just one Z-sphere. Like so. And so now we're just going to create a Z-sphere base without using ZTree. We'll just do this manually. What you'll do is you'll just make sure that you have ZSketch. Typically I think that this defaults to ZSketch anyway, but you're just going to drag out a new Z-sphere on top of the first Z-sphere. And you'll just hit OK because we are deleting that undo history that we just went back on. So I will hold down Shift and rotate to the top, and I'll just shift this Z-sphere into place. And I'm going to add a couple other Z-spheres that we can use to begin shaping our tree. I will hold down Shift and rotate back to the front side, and I'll start shaping the tree using the move gizmo, and then I'll just move the Z-spheres around, the different Z-spheres around until I get the look that I'm going for. So I'm going for kind of an older looking tree that maybe has a few branches, a few large branches in the beginning at the base. Okay, and then I will add another Z-sphere. Click draw and then click where you want to add the Z-sphere and drag that out. Then I'll drag a couple more out that I can shape as well. Go back to move and you'll start dragging the Z-spheres around to create that initial base branch. And you can use the scale gizmo as well to kind of scale these branches out a little more. And as always, anytime that you're in ZBrush, if you hover over one of the icons, you'll get the shortcut that you'll need to use for that icon. So for scale, it was E, move is W, rotate is R. Okay, I'll move to the top view and I'll just move these around so that we have some more vertical variation. And maybe I'll add another branch on the back side over here. Now anytime that you want to snap to a to kind of an orthographic front view, well, it's always going to be orthographic because we don't have perspective turned on, but whenever you want to snap to one of the views, front, side, back, top, whatever, you're going to hold down shift. You're going to begin rotating and then hold down shift, and that will allow you to snap to that view. All right. All right, and so now I'm going to add a few roots to the base here. And anytime that you're adding a Z-sphere to an existing Z-sphere, you need to access the draw function. So just hit Q to access that function, or click this little icon up here in the top left. Maybe I'll branch this root out a little bit here. So I'll just add enough Z-spheres to give us the ability to branch those off. Okay, and that gives us a nice base for our tree. So we have the main body of the trunk, and then we have 3 different branching parts to the tree. And now what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can use ZTree to start giving us some randomness to our tree. So what you'll do is select the Z-sphere that you want to branch from. And so for me, this will be this Z-sphere right here. And then we'll go to ZPlugin and open up ZTree. And typically I want to move the tree to the side so that I can see what's going on, because otherwise this plugin is pretty large and it will obscure the branch creation. Alright, so I will start by just clicking grow angle and see what that does for us. And sometimes, even though I have this Z-sphere selected, sometimes it'll say, give you this warning that you need to select a Z-sphere using move, scale, or rotate. We've already done that, but typically, so far, my experience with this is you'll need to go ahead and move that around a little bit, that Z-sphere, and then you should be able to access it. So let's try it again, and that worked out fine. Alright, so that gave us a horizontal limb, and so I'm going to go ahead and leave that limb like that. Well, leave that creation, but what I'm going to do is rotate this limb up. Try this one. Like like so. Maybe out a little bit. Let's go to this direction. There we go. All right, that's not too bad. So I'm going to go ahead and use the same point, that same ZSphere, and I will access my ZTree again. And I will click Grow Angle, and it should give us another branch that we can work from. And so from here, what we can do is select the next ZSphere in that branch, which would be that one, move it around just a little bit, and then we can go back up into our Z plugin for ZTree, and we can click this this button right here. Branch starts here, and then you can click Grow Branches, and that should populate branches up this limb, like so. And there are a lot of different settings in ZTree that you can change. So you can change the initial width and the final width, the branch angle. So this one is set to come off this branch at 45 degrees, but you can adjust that. The number of branches, and then where is it? So the branch step, I believe it's set to 2 right now. So what that does is creates a branch on this ZSphere, and then it will move 2 ZSpheres forward up that chain, and then it'll create another branch, and then it'll move 2 more ZSpheres and create another branch, and so on and so on. So there are options, I believe. So for your branch step, you can choose a branch step random. So let's set that to 1, and so we'll set the branch steps to 3. So that should give us a branch step of between 2 and 4. So we'll test that out. I'll select this ZSphere right here, and I will go back to ZPlugin. I really wish that the plugin didn't get in the way of your tree so much. But again, I'll select that ZSphere. Now it has to be the base ZSphere in this chain. If I select this ZSphere here, the plugin seems to get confused and it doesn't know where to apply the branches. So I've had it apply branches up in the top of the tree. I've had it apply branches or roots down to the bottom of the tree. So just be sure that you select the first actual ZSphere in that chain. Alright, so I'll go back to ZPlugin. Branch starts here, and we will do Grow Branches. And so there should be a little more randomness in the way that that branch is created. And anytime that we want to preview our mesh when we're using ZSpheres, if you just hit A, it will select Adaptive Mesh, and we can get a nice preview of what the geometry will look like. Hit A again will take us back to ZSpheres, and then I'm going to add another branch to our ZSphere right here, and I will go to ZPlugin, and I will do Grow Angle. So we can do a couple of things. If we change the follow factor, so this essentially, my understanding is that it allows the branch to change direction rather than going in a straight direction. It may curve a little bit, so that's kind of interesting. And then we can add a little bit of horizontal and vertical variation with our vertical setting and our horizontal setting there. So I'll do a setting of 20 vertical, 20 horizontal with a variation of 10, and we can see what that will give us. So grab my Z-sphere there, move it around a little bit, and go ahead and click Grow Angle. And so we have, the branch isn't quite as straight as what we had previously. It does grow straight up there, so we want to go ahead and rotate that around. So I'll move it over here and shift it around. See if I can access that base. There we go. Shift it around there. That's not too bad. I'll grab the first Z-sphere in that chain, and I'll go back to ZPlugin, and I'm going to start adding some other branches. And I'll start messing with some of these settings as well. So we've already got some variation in our vertical and horizontal, so I'm going to go even more drastic with that, and I'll do 40 and 40 for vertical and horizontal. And let's give this a variation of 30 now and see what that does. It could be a little chaotic. Let's see, we still want to keep our branch steps. Let's go back down to 2 for that one. Branch number is fine at 10, so I think that looks pretty good. So I'll grab that Z-sphere, move it around a little bit, and then go to ZPlugin and branch starts here, and then grow branches. And you can see that that's much more chaotic. I like that look. It looks like it's old and it's a little older. So in any time, if we want to adjust the way that these branches look, those initial branches that I created are a little on the very consistent straight side. So I'll just grab my move brush, I'll increase my draw size, and just start shifting those branches around a little bit. Now if I want to straighten the branch out, if I grab this first Z-sphere and I drag, apologies, if I drag in the direction, there we go, if I drag up the branch, it should kind of smooth everything out. So we can make all of these branches look a little more twisted and gnarly. Not too bad. Alright, so I will move on to another part of the trunk. I'm going to make my draw size for my brush smaller again. I'll just select one, select this part of the trunk here, go back to ZPlugin, and I will do another grow angle. And you can see those settings that we messed with are really having an effect on the way that this branch looks. So that's pretty cool. I like that. I'm going to go to the next Z-sphere in the chain, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I will click grow angle, and again we get that error. It just happens sometimes. If you get it, just select your Z-sphere, give it a move, and then grow angle. And so I'm going to start adding some branches. I'll click this Z-sphere. That's the next one in the chain. Actually, I don't like how small that Z-sphere is there, so I will just click scale, and I'll scale that Z-sphere up. Alright, if you hold down Control and click, Shift and click, it should scale the whole thing. Okay, so shift that around a little bit. Branch starts here, and then grow branches. There we go. Pretty cool. So we didn't really get that many branches off there. but that's okay. It's an old tree. Branches are falling off. So I'll add another branch down here. Grab this Z-sphere, and then I will add another grow angle, and then I'll do that again. Not too bad. I'll add another one down here to the base of that limb. Move this over so I can see what's going on. Okay, so I think that these limbs are, I don't like how it's kind of angling back towards the ground, so what I'm going to do is just click rotate, and I'll hold down shift and rotate this whole thing. Come on. It's not liking me. There we go. It's being a little temperamental for me right now. Let's click move to move this around a little bit. Try the rotate now. Alright, let's try this. Z direction. That's not. That's working fine. There we go. Sometimes that is a little temperamental. Alright, so that looks pretty good. And so we can just start adding our branches off this. So I will click move, select the first Z-sphere in this chain, go to Z plugin, branches start here, grow branches. That's pretty cool. Select this Z-sphere because it just kind of stops there. We could actually leave that. I'll actually leave that, and I'll go back and I'll show you how to delete branches as well. So we'll grab this Z-sphere. I'm going to move up this branch a little bit. You don't always have to select the base. You just got to make sure that there are no other branches coming off that chain past where you selected your Z-sphere. So I'll select that Z-sphere there. Z plugin. Branches start here. Grow branches. And so that one acted a little weird. It added branches over there on the other limb. So it's not what it was supposed to do, but I don't mind that look. If I want to go back, I just got to click the scrubber and just go back to where that branch started. And I think that the reason it does that is because we've added too many branches for that chain. So let's go back to here. Alright, so we'll go back to here, and so we can, I think we can fix that just by reducing the number of branches in that chain. So we have branch number, let's just do 6 instead. We'll click branch starts here and grow branches. That's a little better. Same thing down here. Z plugin, branches start here, grow branches. Alright. So we have the base of a pretty gnarly looking tree. We can start adding some more branches to our smaller limbs. So I'll do branch starts here, grow branches. And again, we got some other branches that were populated on other areas, and that once again is because we have, I believe, our branch number is a little high. So I'll hit 4 because there's obviously a lot less ZSpheres in these chains here. So alright, so I said that we would I'd go ahead and show you how to delete a branch. So if you hold down Alt, hold on a second. Now if you can hold down Alt and delete from the end, I believe. Oh, you have to have draw turned on, and you can delete from the end, but not from, come on, go away, not from the center. So all that's going to do is delete that one Z-sphere out of the chain. So to make that entire branch go away, select the Z-sphere that you want it to stop at, and then go up to ZPlugin and click Trim, and it's going to give you the same error. So click and drag that Z-sphere around, go to ZPlugin and click Trim, and it should get rid of the rest of that chain. Looks good. Hit A to preview our mesh, and that's not too bad. Alright, so we could obviously continue really adding a lot of small branches, but I think for the purposes of what we're doing here, that's not too bad. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. So what I'm going to do is hit A so that I can preview my my tree, and then I'll go down to Adaptive Skin and I'll click Make Adaptive Skin, and you'll see that it will create an adaptive skin up in our ZTools palette. So make adaptive skin, and then right here we have a skin Z-sphere tree. Just click that, and now we have a mesh that we can work with. So initially, what I usually do is try to taper off some of these limbs, and you can do so just by holding down Shift and smoothing them out. And so you can taper off some of these really thick limbs, like so. And you don't have to be super precise with this. You can go ahead and just do a whole bunch at once. Alright, you can do you can start shifting your tree around as well to kind of create a little more variation in your tree. So select Move, and we'll make our draw size a little smaller, and let's start giving this more of a knotted look in here. Can drag our roots out a little bit. And for the rest of this, you're really just going to start using your normal sculpting techniques. Add some variety. shift these limbs around, give it some more randomness. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and Zremesh this whole thing. So I'll go to Geometry, Zremesher, and with Zremesher, if you hold down Control, it will tell you what any of your tools do. But you'll see that the target polygon count is in multiples of 1,000, so a target polygon count of 5 should be 5,000 polys. We're going to go with something a little lower, so let's do a 2.5. Hit enter, and then click Zremesh. Now it's not going to be exactly 2,500 polys because we have adaptive mesh turned on, and so in any areas that you have extra detail, it's going to adaptively add geometry to those areas. So you probably will never get an exact number that you're looking for. So like in this instance, we came out with 12.3, so 12,300. But it gives you a good base to start from, realizing that trees are going to have a lot of adaptive detail because there are so many areas where the mesh is branching off. Okay, and that's not too bad. I think that looks pretty good. There's a little bit of there's a little wonkiness right there, so I'll hold down Shift and I'll adjust my Z intensity down to about 10. And then I'm just going to smooth this area out right there. Not bad. And so I'm going to go ahead and divide my tree a couple of times, and then I will select Claybuildup, and I'm using my mouse for this. Ideally I would be using my Cintiq, but my screen capture is only set up for this monitor, so I'll use my mouse, and I'm just going to go ahead and drag in some detail for the tree. Just give it some rough variation in there. And you want to keep your Z intensity fairly low and just do multiple strokes. In areas that are very thin, if you don't want to affect the back face, you have the option to go up to Brush, Auto Masking, and then turn on Back Face Mask, and that should fix that problem if your sculpting is going through to the other side of your mesh. I'm not going to go up too far into the limbs. I just will really focus on the trunk because we're going to use some procedural noise to add some variation to the limbs. You obviously can go ahead and be very meticulous and sculpt out the entire tree, but I don't think, at least not for the purposes of this tutorial, we don't really want to do that. Okay, do this here, and this is an old tree, so I want to add a big burl in there. So I will just create a little bit of a knotty burl right there. Maybe another one right over here. and then I'm going to hold down Alt, and I'm going to, apologize, cut in to my burl there. Not too bad. Add some more detail up here. We can use the snake hook brush to kind of drag out these roots so they're a little thinner and longer. You can add a little bit of extra root to the sides of these, like so. Oop, not liking that. Let's do that. Just move that up a little bit. And we can give the roots a little bit of shaping here too. Alright, so that looks okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and subdivide again. Oh, I really messed this up over here, didn't I? There we go. I'll subdivide again. And then I'm going to, actually let's go back and we'll go back to subdivision level 1 and let's start adding some polygroups to this. So I'm going to hold down, if you notice if we click polyframes, everything is one polygroup. We could have fixed that when we Zremeshed. We could have clicked keep groups, but I didn't do that. So what I'll do is just mask off the base of this tree, and then I'll go to my masking options and I'll grow mask a few times, and then you have to kind of go back and forth. So I'll grow mask a few times, then sharpen mask a few times, grow mask, sharpen mask, and that allows us to kind of move that mask up the tree. Alright, and so I'll sharpen that up, and I'm going to create a polygroup out of this area. So I am going to mask lasso and select the rest of this limb here and this limb, so we have a definite separation between the trunk and the limb. And I'll do the same thing over here. And one more over here. And I think that that's pretty good. Maybe one more right there. Alright, so I'll go over to polygroups and I'll click grouped masked. And now if we take a look, we can see that that group has a different color, which means that we can isolate that group at any time. So I'm going to go ahead and hold down Control and drag to get rid of that mask. And so we want to grab some of these limbs and mask them off as well. So I'll go back to my polyframes and I will just go through with my mask lasso and grab some of these limbs like so. Just kind of these offshoots. It shouldn't take you too long to do. As I'm looking at this, I can see I smoothed this limb out a little too much, or possibly during the Zremeshing it made that a little thin. So I'm just going to go select my inflate brush and inflate this limb a little bit so it's not quite as fragile looking. And then I'll go back to masking off these limbs. So one of the reasons to mask off these limbs is that it will help when you are adding your leaves. So basically anywhere that's going to get a lot of leaves, we want to have as kind of a separate poly group. Alright, so I think that that's good. We've got pretty much everything. Alright, so now I will group masked, and so the limbs there will get a separate poly group, and so now we have 3 different poly groups on our tree, and that's good. So what we can do is go ahead and unwrap our tree now. So go up to Z plugin and close ZTree, and then open up UV master, and then we can click separate by polygroups and click unwrap, and that should give us a fairly clean unwrap for this tree. So I can view that by going down to UV map and morph UV and see what that looks like. So it's not too bad. It's not super pretty, but it will work for the purposes of what we're doing now. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and bring my subdivision level back up to 4, uncheck polyframe, and so now what I can do is, actually let's undo that a little bit. So I want most of my detail to be on the lower part of the tree, so I'm going to hold down Control Shift and click on that trunk and mask off that entire base of the tree, and then Control Shift and click in the gray, and that will give us access to just the masked area will be visible. So I'll Control and I to invert, and now we can actually bring our subdivision level up again and divide this. Oh, no, it's not going to work. So that's fine. Let's do this. I don't want to back off and lose all of that detail that I put in there, but that's okay. So I'm going to delete higher. Let's go back here. Yeah, that's fine. And I'll delete lower. And now if I subdivide this, it should subdivide just the trunk. And you can see where there's some variation in there. Or where that transitions. So I'm trying to think. I think what I'm going to do is make a duplicate of our tree, because I kind of messed up a little bit in the creation. I should have had less detail in these tree limbs and more detail down here. So yeah, so what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and go back to geometry on my first subtool here. Go to geometry and Zremesh this again at 2.5. And it's going to take a minute to resolve. There we go. If we hit solo, we can see what that did. There was a little bit of it missed down in here. So we can smooth that out. Let's Control Z and Zremesh this just a little bit higher to give it a little more geometry. So let's Zremesh this at 4 and try it again. That's better. Alright, so we don't want to carry, we want a lot of detail in the base of this tree, but we don't want to carry all of that detail up through the rest of the tree. So I think we have enough geometry in the top there. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and actually hold on one more time. Control Z. I got to click keep groups to keep those polygroups, and then Zremesh it again. This time it should keep those polygroups. Alright, so now if we click polyframe, we still have all the polygroups that we're looking for. So I will Control Shift and click on the main part of the tree. I'll mask that off. Control Shift and click in the gray. Control and click in the gray to invert that mask. And then what we're going to do is go ahead and divide. And now you can see the transition between the divided geometry here and where you're getting less geometry up there. So I'll do that again. And if we click polyframe, you can see what it's doing to the geometry in there. And I think that that's fine. So it's going to be a fairly dense tree. Right now this is at 60,000 polys. So I'm just going to go ahead and smooth out the base of the tree here so we don't see all of those polygons. And then I'll control and drag in the gray and kind of smooth the trunk and the limbs together a little more. Okay. Alright, now because we have that other subtool here, we can start projecting some of our detail back on. Hopefully it works. So I will go to my subtool palette, go down to project and click project all, and that should bring back a lot of that detail. And that's plenty for what we need. So I'm going to go ahead and smooth out some of this transition here where the base of the trunk transitions into the low poly limbs. Okay, you can see what that looks like. And so I'm going to go ahead and again Control Shift and click on the base of the trunk, mask that off, Control Shift and click in the gray to reveal everything, and then Control I to invert the mask. And I'm going to blur my mask like so, and then we want to click surface, click noise, and that will allow us to add some procedural noise to the base of the tree. So click noise plug, and that will give us a noise plugin that we can use to generate some procedural noise. And then let's try erosion. And I'm just going to hit OK, and I'm going to make some adjustments in my noisemaker. So I will get rid of the noise blend, and then I'm going to adjust the plugin scale. You can start to see some stuff happening in there. I'll adjust my strength until I can kind of see some detail. Adjust my noise, my plugin scale, and so now we have some detail in the base. It's pretty uniform, but we're going to try some other things to make it less so. Alright, so the nice thing with the noise plug is it's not actually applied to the mesh yet. It's just kind of a surface thing that's independent of the geometry. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and bring in some of that detail that I had lost after we went back and Zremeshed again. So I'll just start adding some more of that detail back, low Z intensity. I think the noise plug is a little on the distracting side, so I'll just click noise, and that will allow us to see what we're working with. Interesting. Okay. Again, I'm using my mouse, so I apologize. It's not quite as precise as I typically would do. All right. So spend a lot more time on this. Make it look really, really detailed and gnarly and old. All right. I'm going to subdivide once more to give us a little more resolution. We could do this twice just to bring in even more resolution. So we're almost at a million polys. Work on that burrow right there. Okay. Now sometimes your detail may be a little too much. Frequently, if I want to smooth out some of this detail that I've created, if I back up one level and delete the higher level, so I'll actually, it's not going to allow me to do that because, again, I divided when I had my masking on. It's fine. Alright, so hold on a second. Shouldn't have divided with that mask on. Right there. Clear my mask. Hit divide. Try this again. Alright, just getting some of that striation detail back in there. we can add a little bit of noise up here, spray, and then select let's select this little alpha here. This one is alpha 25. Oops. Set my Z intensity down low, and then start adding a little bit of detail into our trunk. Keep adding some of this detail here. Can create a larger draw size to get some more gnarly look. I'm going to turn off lazy mouse though. Stroke, lazy mouse, click lazy mouse. Alright, and then I'm going to shape this burl a little more with my move tool. Bring that in. Maybe bring the whole thing out a little bit. I'll mask off this area using my mask pen, invert this, and then I will drag this whole thing in a little bit. And maybe flatten that out a little bit in there with my H polish brush. Okay. So a lot of different things you can do. If you want, you can give it a little bit of a jagged look by going to your snake hook and maybe making it look like it's been broken off a little bit in there. Alright, so go back down to my base, control click on the trunk, select the base trunk, control click and click in the gray to unhide everything, and then control click to invert, and then I'm going to go ahead and mask my, I'm going to blur this this mask into my limbs a little more, and then I'll turn on that surface noise again. So I undid everything, so we lost the noise that we had. So I'll go back to my noise plug, bring this over. So the last time we tried the erosion, let's try, see, what does speckled stone do? Bring our mix basic noise down, change our plugin scale and our plugin strength. It should give us the ability to see what's going on. And so that's what it looks like. It's pretty defined, so I can't say I like that. So I'll go back to my noise plug. Where'd you go? I seem to have lost my noise plugin. Where'd you go? Just gonna hit OK and edit this and try this again. Now edit. So I'll try simple marble. Try granite. Nope. Just kind of work through some of these plugins. Perlin noise might be kind of cool. Let's try that. Change my strength and my scale. Gives you a nice rough look. So we could probably apply that to the mesh. So click apply to mesh and it should apply it. Let's go up to subdivision level 2 and do that again. So surface. Oh, where'd you go? Surface. Click noise and it will bring back the same noise that you had, and then apply that to the mesh and it should be a little more detailed. And so we can click noise again, edit this, click edit noise plug, and now we can try a different noise and kind of layer noise on top of noise. So there's granite. Erosion is the one that I actually really like, the erosion, but it may not work for this one. Let's try dense and see what that does. So I will adjust the strength so I can see what's going on. We can push that noise out a little bit, adjust the plugin scale. Hit OK. So that's kind of neat. You have some areas where there's a lot more kind of deformity, which is kind of interesting. So now whenever you apply to the mesh, you're probably not going to have a mesh that's dense enough to hold all of that detail. So it's going to get smoothed out a little bit. So let's go ahead and see what it does. Apply to mesh. And that was too much. It's actually kind of a neat look, but I'm going to Control Z and undo that one. Edit and just adjust the strength a little bit. Hit OK. Not sure why. Let's do a negative. Interesting. The Perlin noise is it's really tricky actually. So edit. I'll just set my strength down to fairly low. Hit OK again and apply that to the mesh. Alright, so I actually don't think that one's going to work. Alright, so I'm going to uncheck, I'm going to clear that mask, and then I'm just going to apply a general noise to the whole thing. So I think I'll go back and try the, where was it? The Perlin? No, not the Perlin. Simplex Marble. Where were you? Let's try Turbulence. I want to apply a general noise to the entire tree. Okay, apply to mesh. Alright, so that's fine. Now, what you can do here is let's go ahead and fill it with a color. I'll click the material, select Skin Shade 4, and then I'll select kind of a brownish gray. My RGB is roughly 96, 74, 74. I'll go up to color, fill object, and then here I'm going to go ahead and let's just add a little bit of detail in the crevices and the cracks and stuff. So I'll go to masking, and I'll do mask by cavity, and then I will invert that mask, turn off view mask. Let's give this just a little more darkness in those cavities, and we'll give it a little bit of green, and we'll color fill object. That's too much. So what I will do is when I'm trying to do something like this, I don't want it to be that drastic, so I will turn down my RGB intensity to say 20, and I'll do color fill object, and it'll fill it at 20% opacity. So then we can add a little bit of color and not have it be so drastic. And then obviously you're going to go in and paint out your color however you really want it. So I'll clear that mask, and then what I'm going to do here is go ahead and create a texture map. So I'll go to texture map, create, and we lost our UVs, didn't we? So I'll have to go back to my subdivision level 1, Z plugin, and then I want to make sure polygroups is checked and click unwrap and create a new texture map. Okay, now I can go down to texture, and I can do new from polypaint, and that should create a texture map for us to start with. It's going to start at 2048, and I want 4096, so I'll click 4096, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that again, and that's good. So go in and paint this out. Oh, one more thing. Whenever you create a texture map, make sure you're at highest subdivision level. Otherwise, it's not going to work out correctly. So go back to texture map, new from polypaint, and this should be a more detailed map. Alright, so you can also do the same thing with your normal map, but with normal map you want to be on the lowest subdivision level. And then I'm going to click flip G, so flip the green channel, click create normal map, and that will give us a normal map to work with too if we want to export into another program. So I'm going to control click on the base trunk, let's do that again, I missed it. So control shift click on the base trunk, and then control shift and drag to invert our selection. Control shift and click on the next trunk level. So you're gonna go through and click each of those, and that will leave us with just the tips of the branches. And then we're going to go ahead and mask that off. Control Shift and click, and now we just have those branches masked. You can blur the mask by control and clicking on the geometry. We'll blur it, and then let's add a fiber mesh and see what it does. So if you go to Fiber Mesh and you click Lightbox Fibers, it'll bring in a lot of different options for us. So let's try a couple different ones. Let's see what we get with just this one right here. So Fibers 51, click that, and that gives us a look that's kind of interesting. And you can go through and try these different fibers and see if anything really that's kind of interesting too. We could probably lengthen those and mess with those ones too. So I think of all the ones so far, that one's not bad. I like that one. Let's try I don't know, it's a toss-up. That one's not bad. That one's not bad. I think I really like that one too. Let's try that one to start with. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit click modifiers, and I'll adjust the length of those. Like so. And you can adjust max fibers, give some, have some lower density, and then you can adjust coverage, and coverage should give you a little thicker look. So it's just a nice, quick, easy way to get an interesting look. So we could change our tip thickness. Our tip color. Actually, these have a texture map, don't they? So we can't actually do that. Let's, I don't really work with fiber mesh a lot. So I'm not going to mess with those. I'm going to go ahead and click accept. I kind of like that. I have solo turned on, so we lost it. So I'll turn off solo, and then hide that initial tree trunk that we had. So that looks kind of cool. So the other fiber mesh that I was going to try, I'll do that now. I'll turn off these leaves, and let's try a different one. So go back to fiber mesh. Where are you? Fiber mesh. Click the Lightbox fibers, and let's click this one right here, and let's adjust our length, our coverage. We can mess with the length again. No, it's okay. I'm not loving it. So I'll open this back up. Open up the Lightbox fibers. You can try. There's all kinds of options in there. So let's try this one. It's fibers 162, and then let's try that. So let's mess with the length, bring that back. Now, I did try this yesterday, and this was not the one I used. So the one I used, I think it was this one. Yeah, it definitely was this one. All right, so I'm going to use this one. So I'll bring the length down, and I kind of liked this. It was kind of like Weeping Willow look that worked well for the tree I had yesterday. So that's kind of cool. Um, I will increase my coverage. Where are you? Right there. That's kind of cool. So I'll hit accept for this. And then we have the black and white because it had a texture map on it. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and go down to Polypaint, and I'm going to click Polypaint from texture, and that should apply a Polypaint to this that we can use for actually creating a new color. So I'll go to masking, and then I'm going to mask it by the intensity of our color. So that is by color and then by intensity. Oh, apologize, we're not on the we have to make sure we select the leaves. So back to Polypaint, Polypaint from texture, masking, and then mask by intensity. And now we can apply some color, color fill object. No, what are you doing to me? Make sure texture map is turned off, and then invert your selection, your masking, and then let's add another color, just a slight variation. Clear your mask. You're left with something that's pretty bright, so we can go ahead and just gradually add a little bit of darkness by bringing down our RGB intensity and filling it a little bit at a time. So it gives us something that looks like this. Alright, let's Alright, so there's a lot of different options that you can do with Fibermesh. It creates a lot of geometry. I'm not sure if it would be something you'd want to bring out and do more with, but it's kind of a cool look and it may work for you. So definitely, if you wanted to have some Spanish moss or something hanging off the tree, this is something that you could use. As far as the tree, we didn't really get too much into painting the tree, but you could go ahead and spend a lot of time in here sculpting and painting. I just was trying to do things fairly quick so you can see how to create this tree, and also not having access to my Cintiq was kind of a detriment too. Real quick, I'll go ahead and save this. So tree 3. And I'll show you the tree that I created yesterday so you have that to look at. Oh, quick save. And so yesterday's tree was looked like this. So you can see I spent a little more time getting some detail in the tree. It still wasn't great, but it was just meant to be kind of fast. And the foliage up here, that was created in the same exact way, but I went back and I actually colored it very quickly by hand and to kind of see what it would look like. I also used an extract to add a little bit of volume because the fiber mesh are single planes, so I wanted to see what it would look like with volume, and it's kind of cool. But you could always go back to our particle flow tutorial and populate, typical your normal individual leaves like we did in that particle flow system. Or you could, I know that in that system we used individual leaves. You could use clusters of leaves as well, which would help save a little bit of overhead for your poly counts. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I know it was fairly long, but I hope it helps. So come check us out at www.ragdollanimation, and I hope to see some of your guys' work. Thanks.